or good afternoon. This is the next in our series. This is kind of tying in with more of a molded cake. So think of, depending on the pans you have, or if you don't have pans, today I'm going to use acetate sheets, which you could get a full size that are the size of a hotel pan or sheet pan, or you can get 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch. They have a roll of it that's, I'm still on the same roll from 3 years ago, I think. So it's about 100 foot, I think. So if you're making individual desserts, think of, if you don't want several different kinds of molds, you could use acetate sheets, make little cake rounds, and build your desserts in the acetate sheets. And then you could store them like that. One place I did work, we stored them like that, and then it kept the outside of the dessert nice and moist. And then when we were ready to serve them, you just cut the tape off and pretty much just plated. So the acetate sheets is something that I think we did go through that this week as part of the equipment. Very, very, very beneficial, because like I said, you could, if you want to make a triangle cake, you could actually make a triangle cake, molding it in. So Bavarian creams come out, they are thickened by gelatin, and what happens is they're not really that firm in the beginning, but when you refrigerate it, I believe some of the students did see a video on that, when you refrigerate it, it will come semi-firm, almost like a mix between a pudding and a jello. So kind of has that a little bit consistency of jello, but not that really rubbery texture. So this is what we're going to work on today. Your Bavarian creams are based on a Creme Anglaise, so you'll see we have made Creme Anglaise before. It's probably one of the most important techniques because, like I said, it can be used as a base for ice cream, could be used just as a sauce, can be used as a base for Bavarian cream. It has a lot of uses. So kind of, when we get to that part, I'll just review the technique. But the first thing we want to do, I'm going to get these out of my way. And the good thing about Bavarian creams is, literally, I'm using the Bavarian cream recipe, and I'm doing a chocolate one, and it says add 5 ounces of chocolate to your Bavarian cream. So that makes it, makes it a little easier, because sometimes with some of these recipes, they're like, add 5 ounces of chocolate, cut the milk down to this, and cut. So this is just a straight throw it in. And it's going to help me today too, because after we make the Creme Anglaise, when we put in the chocolate, I have it shaved very thinly. So when we put in the chocolate, it's going to help cool down our Bavarian cream. So again, powdered gelatin, water. With the sheet gelatin, you use ice water, and the sheet gelatin would only absorb what it needs. So I'm going to put this in here. Actually, before I start that, I am going a little bit out of step, but I'm going to put my milk in first just so it starts heating up, so we're not, sitting here with dead air. So I'm going to turn this on. The portable burners, they heat stuff up pretty quick, so we should be good. Trying to clear some space so you guys can still see. Alright, so I'm heating up my milk right now, and I'm going to pour, sometimes with the Bavarian cream, it may say I'm going to put the vanilla extract in after, but sometimes if you're using vanilla bean, you would scrape the vanilla bean, throw the whole vanilla bean in there, heat it up with your milk, and then take the vanilla bean out afterwards. And that gives you that extra flavor. So with our gelatin, I found the best way is just take it. You can use a spoon, a fork. I found that you want to make sure that every part of your gelatin's wet. So what happens is, if you had some on the top and it's still dry, it won't bloom. So either way, if you're using sheet gelatin or you're using powdered gelatin, what that'll give you is, it's called bloom when you mix it with water. So it makes it usable in your products. So if we were adding this to a colder product, I would have to heat it up in a pan, since we're going to be adding it to an already hot product. But the one thing is with gelatin, when you take it off heat, give it a few seconds. You don't want it blazing hot, but you just want to make sure that it's going to melt the gelatin. So right now, I got my milk, and like I said, that's going to heat up in a few seconds. I'll try to pull something and show you the gelatin still semi liquidy, starting to harden. This now, when you're using powdered gelatin, this was my powdered gelatin. It was 22 grams, so a little less than an ounce, about 3/4 of an ounce, and 5 ounces of water. So when you're using the powdered gelatin, it'll give you a specific amount of water to put into the gelatin. As I said, with the sheet gelatin, it just says throw it in ice water, and the sheet gelatin will absorb only the water that it needs. So as this is starting to heat up, I'm going to get ready for my creme anglaise. So in here is my milk. In my bowl, you're going to put your yolks and sugar. So hopefully everybody remembers, when you're making a creme anglaise, since it's an egg yolk, we're going to put some of the hot liquid into our egg yolks, which is called tempering. If you would do it the other way and put your egg yolks into your hot milk, if you ever had egg drop soup, it would almost look like an egg drop soup. It would just be scrambled egg. So what you're going to do with this, put your yolks and sugar together, and what I find, I don't like to mix them up too early. What I'll see is when my milk's starting to scald and getting close to a boil, that's when I'll start to mix my yolks and sugar. So when you're tempering, we're going to put a little yolk in, a little of the milk into the yolk. And some recipes will tell you add a third in and then add everything back into your pan. I find that sometimes the yolk doesn't really dissolve in all the way when you got it in the bowl. So what I like to do is pour all the milk in. So usually whatever, 3 or 4 additions. And at this point, filling the bottom of my bowl, this is probably about 170 degrees. So with creme anglaise, since there's no cornstarch or thickener in it, you don't want to get it past 180 degrees. So I got my thermometer on me today. Yep, it says about 76. I know it's 75 in this room, so we're pretty good with our calibrated. I've calibrated all these recently. So with this, once it's on, it's gonna go pretty quick. What I like to do once I put the yolk in, I don't get the flame that high because I don't want to overcook it. So if you overcook it at this point, and I think that's what happened with the student that made this last week, if you overcook it at this point, the eggs will start to scramble, and no matter what you do, it's not really going to mix in that well when you try to mix the cream. So like I said, with this, I'm already at 150. This is the one thing I like about the Bavarian Cream. Sometimes you're sitting there on the stove stirring and stirring and stirring. This will cook pretty quickly. I'm gonna turn my heat up just a little bit. And one mistake when students are making, or anybody making creme anglaise, it's that they're not constantly stirring it like this. You don't have to stir it as quick as I do, but you want to make sure you get around those bottom edges. And the overall product, what it looks like right now, you'll see that the top is looking foamy. So as the foam starts to mix into the whole mixture, and the way to determine this, I'll do it with the rubber spatula today, but it's called nappe. So you take a spoon, stick it in there, and if your creme anglaise coats the back of the spoon, you know it's done. Some people will make this. A lot of times I'll make it without using a thermometer. So I've made this several times. I know that, I know what it should look like. I know the consistency. And then, like I said, after this, we'll add our chocolate. So right now we're about 160. So you want to end up around between 175 and 180. So once I usually get to 175, I'll turn it off because the pan is still hot, and then I'll just kind of mix it off the heat just to make sure that I'm not overcooking it. So our foam on the top is starting to mix into the mixture. It's all incorporating in. All right. So this is when you're doing this too. If you see, I know we were talking about some of the equipment recently. You want a thicker gauge or a heavier gauge pot for this. If you have one of the thin aluminum pots, more often than not that you're going to overcook it and scramble it. So these pots are made for induction burners. I know I'm using it for this burner, and now I can see, like, all of a sudden I can see it starting to thicken. So as our foam starts to go into the mixture, like I said, I probably got about another 20 seconds on this and we're good to go. So we're at 170 right now. You can almost smell the eggs cooking in it too. So I don't want to go too much. I'm going to go another few seconds and I'm going to take it off the heat. And like I said, it won't be as thick as like stuff that's thickened with either like flour or cornstarch, like a pastry cream. But it'll be thick enough where, like I said, you can see it'll coat your item. So right now I have barely any of the foam left on the top. It's all starting to look mixed in, and I'm good to go. All right, so once you do this, I try to get it off the heat right away. I'll wash that later. And then since it will continue to cook, because these really hold in heat, I'm going to pour it into my bowl. Try to get all that stuff out of the edges. And then I'll show you what it looks like. So this I'm going to get out of here. So the term nappe, if you see, is coating the back of the spoon. We're good to go. So like I said, first thing I want to put in is my gelatin. And if you see now, our gelatin is pretty much absorbed all the water and it's ready to go in. So if you just threw gelatin in there without either putting the cold water or with the sheet gelatin mixing with ice water, what's going to happen is it won't work. So you do have to, when you're doing it, you do have to mix it with cold water. And then I could already start seeing it dissolving in. What that's doing right now, since it's cold water in the gelatin, that's already bringing our temperature down. As you can see, the steam's coming off of it. I have a thing of ice water here. The main thing with this is you don't want to get the gelatin too set, and you don't want to get the heavy cream too set. Because what happens is if either one of them are too set, they're not going to mix in together. So next off, I'm going to throw in my vanilla. Yes, I know it's only a real tiny bit of vanilla. That'll still help it cool down a little bit. And then putting in, as I said, you can see I really cut the chocolate small so it'll incorporate it. And then already I can feel like it's still a little hot, but it's not as hot as it was. So all these ingredients are really starting to bring down the temperature of our mixture. So this is just right now a chocolate creme anglaise. Like I said, if you wanted to use this is actually, I had a lot of milk chocolate, so I used milk chocolate today. So this is 5 ounces of chocolate in here. And you could do raspberry, peach, depending on your cake. So as I was telling on the video this morning with the sponge cake, describing what I was going to do with this, I have some plain simple syrup, but if you were doing chocolate raspberry cake, you might use raspberry syrup, brush it down, and then make like a raspberry buttercream. So by using this technique with a Bavarian cream and sponge cake, you could do a chocolate sponge cake, almond sponge cake. It gives you like 20-30 different possibilities. So if you see a lot of specialty cake shops where it looks like they got a big menu of cakes, they're probably using a regular sponge cake, brushing it with some flavored syrup, and using different fillings and different flavored icing.